you again for joining us for another edition of Plant Dominant Dollars with Nina Fletcher. I am your host, Nina Fletcher, and I have been getting some really great questions from those of you who I'm doing consultations for, but also I'm doing a Facebook Live feed every week, and you've been taking the opportunity to ask me some questions there. And one of the questions was, hey Nina, the vegan meals we get, but the fast stuff, like the snacks, that kind of thing, that's where the downfall is for me or for you. So today's show is for you, okay? I'm going to make a very, very quick apple turnover. Very easy to make. Let's go on over to our fruit bowl. Now, my whole thing is I try to make recipes that will cut out or at least cut down on sugars, right? So in order to do that for this dish and for my other apple pie dish as well, I recently revised it. I started to add some other fruits to the mix there. So for the apple turnover recipe, we're going to use, of course, apples. Okay. We're going to use a little bit of lime. That adds balance. Okay. And we're going to use Bosc pears. I know that sounds a little bit, crazy, but when you mix the balance between the apples, you have the tartness of the apples, and you have the sweetness of the Bosc pear, it balances out and you don't necessarily need sugar, okay? And on occasion, depending on the taste, I add a little bit of lime. I usually wait a little bit for that. So what I've done was to take the apples and the pears, and I've cut them up into about inch-sized pieces or so. They don't have to be even, they don't have to be perfect, right? And I put them in a saucepan, okay? And I squeezed a little bit of lime in there so far. And to keep the whole thing percolating nicely, I added a little coconut oil. Coconut oil actually, believe it or not, adds the butter flavor. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it sort of adds the butter flavor. So as you can see, I have some over here that have already started on the stove. And to that, we're going to add just a little bit of Himalayan salt. We're going to add just a little bit of vanilla. A little bit of ground nutmeg. This is starting to smell great already. A little bit of ground cinnamon. And just a little bit of grade B maple. That's about maybe 2 tablespoons, if. Okay? Give that a good mix. Smells wonderful. And you're going to keep that on medium heat for a little bit. Ah, that smells and looks wonderful. I almost feel like I want to put a little more nutmeg in there, but I will hold off until I get ready to taste it. All right. Now, meanwhile, I will remind you that I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And I have the heat on my apples on medium. We're going to let that stir and grind just a little bit. And we're going to move on over in a second to roll out our crust. But I've covered this before in 1 or 2 other videos, so I'm not going to cover it completely again. Generally, a very good pie crust or a very good crust altogether is going to be about a cup of spelt flour, a half a cup of organic white, and then you put in a little bit of olive oil, about 2 tablespoons until it turns to pearls, and then you pour in cold water to keep it cold and put it in the refrigerator for about a half hour or so. So I've already done all that over here. And let me grab my rolling pin. And of course, like I do every time, we're going to sprinkle some flour on your surface so that the dough doesn't stick. We're also going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on top of the dough and also on the actual rolling pin. Okay. Awesome. Very nice dough. Very easy and simple pie crust. Did I get a little? Yeah. See, it comes out to be very, very flaky, so go ahead on and roll that out. And as I always say, excuse me, you can even that off with a pizza cutter. So that you have a square surface to work with. That is somewhat square. And what I do is I take the dough and I sort of do it in about 4-inch squares. So actually I think I'm going to end up making maybe 4. I was going to make 6, but let me make 4 muffins. Or 4 of the pies. So we'll go like that. So what you want to do, these are Texas cupcake pans. This is the easiest way that I've found to sort of make an apple turnover because the shape is already there for you. There's not much work you have to do other than to just take the dough, right? And you're going to stuff it right in. Just like that. Take another one. Stuff it right in. And take your last one. Stuff it right in. So that you have 4 nice little pockets here. Very, very easy. So by now we should be able to walk on over to our apples. You don't have to make sure that they're extremely soft because remember, they're going to go in the oven. What you want to do is make sure some of that condensation has come off the bottom of the pan so that you're not putting soupy apples in there. So, I'll show you what the bottom of the pan should look like. We're almost there. The bottom of the pan here, look, see? Right here. Just a little bit of what would be considered syrup. Right there at the bottom. That lets you know that the coconut oil has come together and the syrup has done its job. You're not going to have too much of a soupy mess when you go to put your apples in. So here's where we put our apples in. You want to turn this off. And generally what I try to do is to let the apples sit for just a little bit. So now we have our pie crust all ready. And our apples and pears are actually ready. Now, it's at this point that I generally put in a good handful of nuts. I usually take desserts and breakfast as an opportunity to put, you know, it says you're supposed to have a handful of nuts every day. So I usually use desserts and breakfast to make sure that happens. I also, on occasion, if you're vegan, go ahead and use carrot chips. But occasionally I'll put a couple of chocolate chips in the mix as well. Not a whole lot, but a few. And in they go to the pie shells. Very easy little popover. Very tasty. Okay, and at this point, it doesn't have to be perfection because when they come out, they look really, really artistic. When it's not perfection, you fill them as far as you can, and then you fold them over and just pinch them where the dough hugs itself, so to speak. Sometimes the rougher the edges, the prettier it looks once it's finished baking. Awesome. And you're going to throw these in a 350-degree oven. Keep an eye on them because they're pretty much done once they turn golden brown. And of course, the rest of the apples you can just eat yourself if you have leftovers. So we're going to let that bake, and then we're going to come right back. Okay, so our popovers are just about to come out of the oven. So while they're in the last maybe 2 to 5 minutes, we're going to make a chocolate drizzle to put over the top. This is incredibly easy. It acts as magic shell if you try to put it over ice cream, because when you put it in the refrigerator it hardens, but we're not going to put it in the refrigerator so it just stays in the sauce. You're going to take about a tablespoon of coconut oil. Okay. And you're going to add chips. Now for this, I use a metallic bowl in a double boiler form. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So you see, what I have is a pot of boiling water. And then what I did was I put a metallic bowl on the top. So that gives me the double boiler. Now, I will tell you, if you try to melt the chocolate directly on top of the heating range, you're going to experience some burning. This is why I'm using what's called the double boiler method. Now, you can go purchase a double boiler if you like, but I just happen to like my metallic bowls and just be very careful, and I usually do it this way. So once you see it sort of melting, you're going to try to keep the temperature of the chocolate consistent. and it becomes very smooth and glossy. Let's check our popovers. I think they should be just about done. Yep, I'm gonna call that done. I like mine just golden brown, just under what would be considered medium brown. So we'll pull that out. And they are so delicious. Let's see here. Yep, this will work. Just gonna move this out the way. Whoop. Hot. Okay. Voila. Our very simple apple turnover, and we are going to take our chocolate drizzle, put it right over top, and to finish it off, just a little powdering of confectioner sugar right over the top. Now, excuse my shirt, we'll give it a little taste. That is a pretty plate. I just had to look at it first. Actually, I think I'm going to cut it from your angle so you can see it. Yum. Oh, that is incredibly piping hot. Nice crisp crust. Awesome. And we're using Bach pears and apples, so it should be nice and sweet without using a whole lot of sugar. Actually, without using any. A fabulous and easy bite. Thank you for joining me again on Plant Dominant Dollars. I hope you liked the easy and fast apple turnover. We will see you again. Don't forget, like and subscribe us on YouTube, okay? So we can keep putting the shows out there. You can also like and subscribe us on Facebook, but YouTube is where you want to be. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you for watching Plant Dominant Dollars with Nina Fletcher. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tune in next week when Nina takes on
Chocolate avocado mousse.
Here on Plant Dominant Dollars with Nina Fletcher. It's the genius!